The cathedral bells tolled as Stella Nightingale stared at her reflection in the bridal suite mirror. Her fingers trembled against the intricate lace of her wedding gown, a custom Vera Wang that cost more than her annual salary as a chef. 10 minutes, Miss Nightingale. The wedding coordinator's voice chirped through the door. Mr. Reed is waiting. Stella's gaze fell to her phone screen and the anonymous text message that had arrived 20 minutes ago. Don't marry him. He killed your father. Attached was a photo of Maxwell Reed shaking hands with Anthony Costello, the notorious businessman rumored to have connections with organized crime, the same man her father had been investigating before his disappearance 3 years ago. Her breathing quickened as she recalled the final conversation with her father. If anything happens to me, Stella, there's a safe place in Harborview. The old lighthouse holds more than just memories. The suite door opened, and Vivian Reed, Maxwell's mother, entered with a practiced smile. Everyone is waiting, dear. Maxwell is getting impatient. Could I have just one more minute alone, please? Stella asked, forcing a smile. Vivian hesitated, her shrewd eyes narrowing slightly. Don't keep my son waiting too long. You know how he hates that. The moment the door closed, Stella grabbed her small emergency bag from beneath the vanity. Passport, credit cards, and $5,000 in cash she'd been saving. Her father had taught her to always have an escape plan. She slipped out through the service entrance, ignoring the startled looks from kitchen staff. Outside, she ditched her veil in a dumpster and ran toward the staff parking lot where her old Honda Civic waited. The cathedral faded in her rearview mirror as she merged onto the highway, her phone buzzing incessantly until she tossed it out the window. 6 hours and 3 gas stations later, the seaside town of Harborview, Massachusetts appeared on a road sign. The sun was setting over the Atlantic Ocean as Stella drove down Main Street, past quaint New England storefronts and seafood restaurants. She parked near the harbor and changed into jeans and a sweater in the car. The wedding dress she stuffed into her bag. It was worth too much to discard completely. Her new life would need every dollar she could scrape together. The Harborview Inn had a vacancy sign lit. The elderly woman at the front desk barely glanced at Stella's credit card when she registered under her mother's maiden name, Haynes. Passing through or staying a while? The woman asked. I'm not sure yet, Stella replied. I might be looking for work. Well, if you cook, the Sapphire restaurant down by the marina is hiring. Their sous chef just left for Boston last week. In her room, Stella sat on the bed and allowed herself to cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she washed her face, applied for the job at the Sapphire using her culinary school credentials, and fell into a dreamless sleep. The next morning, she walked to the edge of town where a rocky promontory held the abandoned lighthouse her father had mentioned. The structure stood sentinel over the gray Atlantic, its paint peeling and windows boarded. A padlock secured the door, rust suggesting it hadn't been opened in years. I'm here, Dad, she whispered to the wind. Now what? 2 days later, Stella stood in the gleaming kitchen of the Sapphire, interviewing with the head chef, Marcus Chun. Your resume is impressive, he said, reviewing her credentials. Culinary Institute of America, internship at Luke Bernardine, head chef at Rosewood in Philly. Why Harborview? I needed a change, Stella said. Big cities burn you out. Marcus nodded. We have a 2-week trial period. The owner is particular about the menu, but he's rarely here. Mostly we have free reign to create. Who is the owner? Stella asked. Archer Blackwood. Made his fortune in tech, but he's from Harborview originally. This place is his pet project. The name meant nothing to Stella, which was exactly how she wanted it. Her only concern was avoiding any connection to Maxwell Reed or his business empire. By the end of her first week, Stella had already impressed Marcus with her innovative seafood recipes. The restaurant staff welcomed her warmth and creativity, a stark contrast to the tightly controlled environment she'd endured at Maxwell's social functions. On Friday night, as she left through the back door, she noticed a sleek black Aston Martin parked in the reserved space. A tall figure stood in the shadows, smoking. You must be the new chef, a deep voice said. I hear you're revolutionizing my menu. Stella froze, unable to see the man's face clearly. Mr. Blackwood? I didn't know you were visiting tonight. He stepped forward, and Stella's breath caught. Archer Blackwood was younger than she'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with intense blue eyes and the confident bearing of a man accustomed to power. I make it a point to sample any new additions personally, he said, extinguishing his cigarette. Your scallop dish with the brown butter sauce was exceptional. Thank you, Stella said, fighting the urge to step back. Something about his scrutiny made her uneasy. You're not what I expected, Ms. Haynes, he said, using the false name she'd provided. Your background is impressive. I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Blackwood. He nodded once. Welcome to Harborview. I hope you find what you're looking for here. As Stella walked back to her rented room, she couldn't shake the feeling that Archer Blackwood had been sizing her up for reasons beyond her culinary skills. In her room, she turned on the small television to find her own face staring back at her from a national news broadcast. The runaway bride of Maxwell Reed, now the subject of a private investigation. Her phone, a new prepaid model, pinged with a message from an unknown number. You can't hide forever, Stella. She dropped the phone as if burned. They had found her already. She needed to run again, but something about her father's clue in this town made her hesitate. The lighthouse held answers, and perhaps this time, she would face her hunters instead of fleeing. Archer Blackwood silenced his phone as his private jet began its descent into Portsmouth Regional Airport. The Boston skyline glittered in the distance, but his attention remained fixed on the tablet in his hands, specifically on the background report his security team had compiled about Stella Haynes. Interesting read? His chief of security, Jackson Reed, asked from across the aisle. Very. Archer swiped through photos of Stella Nightingale in a wedding dress, running from the cathedral, and later security camera footage of her discarding her phone. The new chef at Sapphire isn't who she claims to be. Want me to handle it? Archer shook his head, his mouth curving into a cool smile. No need. I'm curious why Maxwell Reed's runaway bride chose my restaurant in my hometown to hide. The connections were too specific to be coincidental. Maxwell Reed was more than just another business rival. He was the man Archer suspected of orchestrating the accident that killed his parents 12 years ago. The same man whose financial dealings had repeatedly undercut Archer's acquisitions through insider information. Did you know, Archer said, closing the file, that just before she left him at the altar, Reed was finalizing a hostile takeover of Meridian Tech, a company I've been nurturing for 3 years? Jackson's eyebrows rose. You think she's connected? I think nothing happens by accident in my world. The plane touched down with a gentle bump. I want to know what she knows. The drive to Harborview took 40 minutes, the road winding along the rugged Massachusetts coastline. Archer had purchased the Sapphire 5 years ago, not because he needed another business, but because it had been his mother's favorite restaurant before she died. It was one of the few sentimental indulgences he allowed himself. The executive chef, Marcus, met him at the private entrance. Mr. Blackwood, we weren't expecting you tonight. Last-minute decision. I hear you've made some menu changes. Marcus's face brightened. The new sous chef has been exceptional. Her New England Chippino sold out 3 nights in a row. He lowered his voice. She's worked at places that would make most chefs weep with envy, yet she took our position with barely any negotiation. Something doesn't add up. I'd like to meet her, Archer said. Arrange it casually. From his private dining room overlooking the harbor, Archer sampled each of Stella's new dishes. The flavors were bold yet balanced, reflecting technical expertise and genuine creativity. Whatever her secrets, the woman could cook. As the dining room cleared, Archer made his way to the kitchen. The staff straightened immediately at his entrance, except for one figure. Bent over a plating station, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, completely absorbed in arranging edible flowers on a dessert. Ms. Haynes, Marcus called. Our owner would like to speak with you. She turned, and Archer was struck by her eyes. Intelligent, wary, and carrying a depth of sadness that resonated with something inside him. But he'd learned long ago not to trust his instincts around beautiful women. Your additions to our menu are impressive, he said, maintaining a professional distance. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Her voice was steady, but he caught the subtle tightening of her shoulders. I appreciate the opportunity to work here. Where did you learn to cook like that? Culinary Institute, then various restaurants. She named several high-end establishments, her story perfectly aligned with her fake resume. Walk with me, he said, not a request. They moved to the empty dining room, now dark except for the moonlight streaming through the windows. Do you know why I bought this restaurant, Miss Haynes? He asked. I haven't had time to research your portfolio, Mr. Blackwood. A subtle evasion, intelligent. It was my mother's favorite place. She and my father would drive up from Boston every anniversary. He gestured toward the lighthouse visible in the distance. She loved that view. Something flickered in Stella's expression at the mention of the lighthouse. Interesting. It's a beautiful landmark, she said carefully. It's been abandoned for years. Dangerous, actually. The structure is unstable. She nodded, but Archer had caught her momentary interest. Whatever connection she had to Harborview, it involved the lighthouse. Tell me, Ms. Haynes, what brings someone with your credentials to a seasonal town in the off-season? Sometimes you need to step back to move forward, she said. Big city kitchens can be toxic. He smiled thinly. I imagine running out on your wedding day created its own toxicity. The color drained from her face, but she didn't flee. Instead, her chin lifted slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence, Ms. Nightingale. He moved closer. Maxwell Reed is not a man who accepts rejection gracefully. You've made a powerful enemy. Are you going to turn me in? Her voice remained steady despite the fear in her eyes. That depends on why you're here. In my restaurant. In my hometown. It's coincidence, she said. I needed somewhere to start over. I stopped believing in coincidences when my parents' yacht exploded with them on it. Archer studied her reaction, especially when Maxwell Reed purchased their shipping company 6 weeks later at a fraction of its value. Confusion crossed her features. Genuine, he thought. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Ms. Nightingale, that we might have common interests where Maxwell Reed is concerned. He handed her his business card. My private number. When you're ready to tell me why you really left him, call me. He turned to leave, then paused. In the meantime, your position here is secure. Your cooking speaks for itself. Later that night, in his family's estate overlooking the bay, Archer reviewed everything his team had gathered on Stella Nightingale, daughter of Thomas Nightingale, a respected financial investigator who disappeared 3 years ago, culinary prodigy who caught the attention of Maxwell Reed at a charity gala. Their whirlwind romance had been tabloid fodder, the billionaire and the beautiful chef. What had caused her to flee moments before saying, I do? And why Harborview? His phone rang. Veronica Sinclair, his executive assistant of 10 years. What did you find? He answered. Thomas Nightingale's last known case before his disappearance, she said. He was investigating financial irregularities at Coastal Holdings, Reed's shell company. Archer noted, sitting up straighter. Yes, and there's more. 3 days before Stella left Reed at the altar, someone accessed Thomas Nightingale's private cloud storage using his password. It was the first activity on the account since his disappearance. Archer stared out at the dark ocean. She found something. Something worth risking everything to run from. How do you want to proceed? Archer considered his options. He could confront her directly, but she was clearly frightened and distrustful. Or he could gain her confidence. Let her reveal her secrets voluntarily. I'm going to befriend Ms. Nightingale, he decided. Whatever she knows about Reed could be the key to finally proving what happened to my parents. And if she's working with Reed? Veronica asked. This could be an elaborate setup. Then I'll discover that too, Archer said coldly. Either way, Stella Nightingale will serve my purpose. As he ended the call, his gaze returned to the photograph of Stella. There was something in her eyes that called to him, a haunted quality he recognized from his own mirror. But sentiment was weakness, and Archer Blackwood had eliminated weakness from his life long ago. Tomorrow, he would begin his campaign to win Stella Nightingale's trust, and when he had what he needed, he would discard her just as efficiently as every other pawn in his long game against Maxwell Reed. Stella checked the temperature of the duck confit, her mind elsewhere as she moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency. 2 weeks had passed since Archer Blackwood revealed he knew her true identity. 2 weeks of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. Instead, Archer began appearing at the restaurant more frequently, always requesting her special creations. Sometimes he dined alone in his private room. Other times he brought business associates who raved about her food. He was polite, professional, and utterly inscrutable. Chef's compliments, Marcus announced, returning from delivering a dish to Archer's table. Mr. Blackwood wants to know if you'd create something off-menu for his guest tonight. Apparently, the man's a seafood fanatic. Any specifications? Stella asked, already mentally cataloging the fresh catches from that morning. He trusts your judgment. Marcus raised an eyebrow. He seems quite taken with your cooking. Stella ignored the implication and focused on creating a seared scallop dish with local ingredients. When she finished, she hesitated. "You should deliver this one yourself," Marcus suggested. "The owner appreciates personal touches." Reluctantly, Stella carried the plate to the private dining area. Archer sat across from an older gentleman, their conversation pausing as she approached. "Ah, the chef herself," Archer said, his voice revealing nothing of their previous confrontation. "Senator Phillips, this is Stella Haynes, the culinary genius I mentioned." "Senator Phillips?" Stella managed a polite smile, setting down the plate. "This looks magnificent," the senator said. "Archer tells me you're the best thing to happen to Harborview in years." "Mr. Blackwood is generous with his praise," Stella replied carefully. Archer's eyes met hers, and something electric passed between them. "I recognize talent when I see it." "Please enjoy," she said, eager to retreat. "The scallops were caught locally this morning." "Before you go," Archer said, "the senator and I are finishing early. Would you join me for a nightcap afterward? I'd like to discuss some ideas for a special event next month." Trapped by the professional request in front of a witness, Stella nodded. "Of course." An hour later, Stella found herself sitting across from Archer at a corner table, the restaurant closed except for their secluded spot overlooking the moonlit harbor. "Relax," he said, pouring her a glass of wine. "If I wanted to expose you, I would have done it already." "Then what do you want, Mr. Blackwood?" "Answers." He leaned forward. "Starting with why you left Reed at the altar." Stella took a sip of wine, weighing her options. "That's personal. Not when it involves a man I suspect had my parents murdered." His voice remained conversational, but his eyes hardened. "Not when you're hiding in my town, cooking in my restaurant." "I didn't know this was your restaurant when I applied," she said truthfully. "But you knew about Harborview." "It wasn't a question." "Why here specifically?" Stella hesitated, then decided a partial truth might satisfy him. "My father mentioned it once. Said it was a place to find peace." Archer studied her face. "Thomas Nightingale, financial investigator, disappeared 3 years ago. No body found." Her heart clenched. "You've done your homework." "Always." He swirled his wine. "Was Reed involved in your father's disappearance?" The question hit too close to her suspicions. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But 3 days before the wedding, I received evidence suggesting it was possible." "What evidence?" She shook her head. "I can't tell you that. Can't or won't. Does it matter? I'm not sharing information that could get me killed." Archer's expression softened slightly. "Fair enough. For now." He changed tactics. "Let me show you something tomorrow. After your shift." "What?" "The lighthouse. Since you seem so interested in it." Stella's pulse quickened. "I never said you didn't have to. Your expression did." He stood. "Meet me at the marina at 7. Dress warmly." Before she could refuse, he was gone, leaving her with an empty wine glass and a decision to make. Across town, Maxwell Reed's private jet touched down at the small regional airport. His personal assistant approached the idling town car. "We've confirmed she's working at a restaurant called Sapphire," the assistant reported, living under the name Stella Haynes. Maxwell adjusted his cufflinks. "And the property records?" "The restaurant is owned by Archer Blackwood through a holding company." Maxwell's mouth tightened. "Blackwood, always in my way." He stared out at the darkened coastline. "Keep surveillance discreet. I want to know if she contacts anyone, especially regarding her father's files." "Yes, sir." "And if she attempts to leave town, make sure she doesn't." Maxwell's expression darkened. "She belongs to me." The next evening, despite her misgivings, Stella found herself walking toward the marina. Archer waited beside a sleek speedboat, his tall figure silhouetted against the sunset. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "Professional curiosity," she replied. It wasn't entirely a lie. She needed to know if the lighthouse held the answers her father had promised. The boat ride took less than 10 minutes, cutting across the bay to the rocky peninsula where the lighthouse stood. As they approached the small dock, Stella noticed fresh repairs to the structure. "You've been here recently," she observed. "I own it," Archer replied, helping her from the boat. "Purchased it last year when the town was considering demolition." "Why?" "Sentimental value." His expression revealed nothing more. They climbed the winding path to the lighthouse. The door no longer bore the rusty padlock Stella had seen during her first visit. Instead, a modern security system guarded the entrance. Archer entered a code, and the door swung open. Inside, the ground floor had been partially renovated, The debris cleared away, new flooring installed, and basic furniture added. My private retreat, Archer explained. Sometimes I need to escape the demands of my world. Stella moved to the window, gazing out at the darkening water. It's beautiful. Your father ever mention why he found this place significant? The directness of his question caught her off guard. He just said if anything happened to him, Harborview would be safe. The lighthouse held memories. Archer watched her intently. What if I told you your father came here regularly in the months before his disappearance? Stella turned sharply. How would you know that? Security cameras at the marina recorded someone matching his description taking a boat out to this peninsula multiple times. Always alone, always returning after dark. You're lying, she whispered, but uncertainty crept into her voice. I have no reason to lie, Stella. Whatever your father was involved in, it connects to this place. He stepped closer. It might also connect to what happened to my family. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For a moment, he wasn't the cold billionaire, but a man haunted by loss, something she understood all too well. Show me, she said finally. Archer led her up the spiral staircase to the lantern room. The original light had been removed decades ago, replaced by a smaller, automated beacon. The circular space offered a panoramic view of the coastline. My parents died 12 years ago, Archer said, staring out at the ocean. Their yacht exploded 5 miles offshore. Authorities ruled it an accident, faulty fuel line. But you don't believe that. Reed's company acquired my family's shipping business 6 weeks later. The board sold at a fraction of its value, panicked by the sudden leadership vacuum. His voice hardened. Too convenient. Stella moved to stand beside him. I'm sorry about your parents. I don't want sympathy, he said. I want justice. And you think I can help you get it? I think whatever made you run from Reed might be the missing piece I've been searching for all these years. Their eyes met, and Stella felt an unexpected connection. Two broken people seeking answers, revenge, perhaps even peace. The moment shattered as Archer's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, his expression darkening. We need to go? Now. What's wrong? Security alert at the marina. He was already moving toward the stairs. Someone's watching my boat. They descended quickly, Archer leading her out a side door to a narrow path winding around the back of the peninsula. There's a small cove, he explained. I keep an emergency dinghy there. As they hurried through the darkness, Stella felt the weight of her decisions pressing down. She had fled one dangerous man only to align herself with another whose motives remained unclear. Archer, she said as they reached the hidden cove, if I tell you what I know about Reed, what guarantee do I have that you won't use it against me too? He turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the moonlight. None. That's the problem with dangerous games, Stella. Once you start playing, the only way out is to win. As they pushed the small boat into the water, neither noticed the figure watching from the cliffs above, nor the camera lens capturing their every move. In a hotel room overlooking Harborview, Veronica Sinclair studied the surveillance photos of Archer and Stella leaving the lighthouse together. Her hand tightened around her phone as she dialed a number she'd sworn never to use. It's me, she said when the line connected. Blackwood's getting too close to the Nightingale woman. If he discovers what's in the lighthouse, everything we've worked for is compromised. The voice on the other end was cold, efficient. Then perhaps it's time Miss Nightingale had an unfortunate accident. After all, runaway brides live dangerous lives. The aroma of truffle risotto filled Archer's kitchen as Stella stirred the creamy mixture with practiced precision. After the lighthouse incident 3 days ago, she'd been surprised by his invitation to cook dinner at his cliffside estate. You didn't mention you lived in a modern fortress, she said, adding a splash of white wine to the pan. Archer leaned against the marble counter, watching her work. Privacy is a luxury in my position. Is that why you have armed guards patrolling your property? You noticed. Hard to miss men with concealed weapons trying to look inconspicuous among the rose bushes. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Recent developments required increased security. Developments involving whoever was watching your boat. Perhaps. He poured 2 glasses of an expensive Bordeaux. My security team found surveillance equipment on the marina dock. Professional grade. Stella's hand faltered briefly. Maxwell. Possibly. Or someone equally determined. He handed her a glass. Which brings us to tonight's conversation. She accepted the wine, but shook her head. I'm not ready to share everything. Then start with something small. Why did you really leave him at the altar? Stella turned off the burner and faced him. 3 days before the wedding, I received an anonymous text with a photo of Maxwell meeting with Anthony Costello. Recognition flashed in Archer's eyes. The businessman with alleged organized crime connections. The same man my father was investigating before he disappeared. She gripped her wine glass tighter. The message said Maxwell killed my father. Did you believe it? I didn't want to. But then I remembered finding strange financial documents in Maxwell's study months earlier. When I asked about them, he became different, controlling, monitoring my calls, my movements. Typical Reed behavior, Archer murmured. The final straw was overhearing him on the phone the night before our wedding. He said, "Once she's legally mine, the Nightingale problem is permanently solved." Stella's voice wavered. I realized I was just a loose end to be tied up. Archer's expression darkened. Your father must have found something damaging. I think so too. She served the risotto onto 2 plates. Your turn. What's your connection to Maxwell? They moved to the dining room, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the moonlit ocean below. Beyond suspecting him of orchestrating my parents' deaths, Archer took a bite of the risotto, nodding appreciatively. We've been business rivals for years. Recently, he's been targeting companies I've invested in, using insider information he shouldn't have access to. That sounds like Maxwell. He once bragged that information was more valuable than money. Archer set down his fork. Stella, I need to show you something. He led her to his study, where a leather portfolio lay on his desk. Inside was a meticulously compiled dossier. What is this? She asked, scanning the documents. Evidence I've gathered over the past decade linking Reed to my parents' death. Financial transfers, shell companies, witness testimonies. He pointed to a series of photographs, including this. The image showed Maxwell with a man Stella didn't recognize, examining what appeared to be technical diagrams. That's Dmitry Volkov, explosives expert with ties to Russian organized crime. This photo was taken 2 weeks before my parents' yacht exploded. Archer's voice remained controlled, but his eyes betrayed his pain. I've never had enough to take to authorities. Reed covers his tracks well. Stella felt cold despite the room's warmth. Why are you sharing this with me? Because whatever your father discovered might be the missing piece. He moved closer. Reed wants you silenced for a reason, Stella. The same reason he wanted your father gone. Their eyes met, and the air between them charged with something beyond shared enemies. A connection neither had anticipated. The moment broke when Archer's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Excuse me, I need to take this. As he stepped away, Stella continued examining the dossier. A newspaper clipping caught her attention, a small article about a fire at a financial investigation firm 12 years ago. Her father had worked there, she realized with a jolt. Archer returned, his expression grim. That was my head of security. Someone attempted to break into your apartment an hour ago. Fear coursed through her. Maxwell found me. I've sent a team to secure your belongings. You can't go back there. Where am I supposed to go? You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. His tone left no room for argument. Later, as Stella settled into the guest suite, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was trading one cage for another. Archer Blackwood's motives remained opaque. Was he protecting her or using her for his vendetta against Maxwell? In his study, Archer stared at the surveillance photos from the lighthouse, particularly the shadowy figure on the cliffs his security team had only just discovered. Someone else was watching them, playing their own game. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She doesn't know everything about her father. Or about you. Proceed carefully. Archer deleted the message, his resolve hardening. Whatever secrets the lighthouse held, he would find them, with or without Stella's cooperation. The game had become too dangerous for half measures. Veronica Sinclair had served as Archer Blackwood's executive assistant for 10 years. She'd been there when his parents died, when he transformed his inheritance into a billion-dollar empire, and when he began his systematic campaign against Maxwell Reed. She knew his secrets, his weaknesses, and his obsessions. What he didn't know was that she loved him. She watched through the surveillance feed as Archer escorted Stella through the gardens, pointing out rare plants his mother had cultivated. The woman had been staying at his estate for 3 days now. 3 days of intimate dinners and hushed conversations that excluded Veronica. Quite cozy, aren't they? Veronica turned to find Jackson Reed, head of security, observing the same feed. It's tactical, she replied stiffly. He's gaining her trust. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Is that what we're calling it now? Did you need something, Mr. Reed? Just the security briefing for the Sapphire event tomorrow. Chef Nightingale's special menu preview has attracted considerable attention. The food festival had been Archer's idea, a showcase for Stella's talent that would establish her reputation in Harborview while keeping her safely in the public eye. Maxwell Reed wouldn't risk a move with so many witnesses. Everything's arranged, Veronica said, handing him a folder. Though I question the wisdom of flaunting her in public when Reed's people are watching. Not your call to make. Jackson took the file. Archer seems quite invested in her safety. After he left, Veronica accessed Archer's private server, a breach that would cost her job if discovered. She found what she feared: detailed background checks on Stella, surveillance of the lighthouse, and most damning, a personal journal entry where Archer admitted he was becoming compromised in his feelings toward the chef. Fury and betrayal burned through her. She'd sacrificed everything for Archer's vendetta, only to watch him fall for the very bait he'd set. She made the call before she could reconsider. Reed. Maxwell's voice was cold, efficient. I have the information you wanted, Veronica said. The Nightingale woman is staying at Blackwood's estate. They'll both be at the Sapphire tomorrow for the food festival. And the lighthouse. Blackwood has increased security there. Whatever they're looking for, they haven't found it yet. A pause. You've been extremely helpful, Miss Sinclair. Your assistance won't be forgotten when this concludes. Just remember our deal. Archer remains unharmed. Maxwell's laugh was chilling. My dear, I don't want Blackwood dead. I want him ruined. Watching him lose everything will be far more satisfying. The next morning, Stella stood in the Sapphire's kitchen, directing her team as they prepared for the festival. Her signature dishes, New England chupino, truffle-infused scallops, and a deconstructed clam chowder, were ready for the critics and food bloggers arriving that afternoon. Archer appeared in the doorway, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. The press is already lining up outside. I'm still not sure this is a good idea, Stella said, wiping her hands on her apron. What if Maxwell has people here? That's exactly what I'm counting on. He lowered his voice. Draw him out, force him to make a mistake. Using me as bait. Using us both. He touched her arm briefly. Trust me, Stella. She wanted to, more than she should. The past days at his estate had revealed a different Archer, brilliant but wounded, driven by loss but capable of surprising gentleness. She'd caught herself thinking of him at odd moments, wondering if the connection she felt was real or another manipulation. Chef Nightingale. Marcus called. The food critic from Boston Magazine wants to interview you before the tasting. The festival began successfully, with guests raving about Stella's creations. She was midway through her demonstration when she noticed Veronica enter with an unfamiliar woman who headed straight for the preparation table. Minutes later, as Stella plated her final dish, a commotion erupted from the judging area. This is outrageous. A prominent critic stood, waving a printout. These recipes are directly plagiarized from Vincent Marchand's unpublished cookbook. The room froze. Vincent Marchand was a legendary French chef whose upcoming book was the industry's most anticipated release. That's impossible, Stella protested. I've never seen. We have proof, another judge interrupted, holding up a tablet. Identical recipes, found on your personal laptop. Horror dawned as Stella realized what had happened. Someone planted those files. I've never stolen. There's more, the first critic continued. Documents proving you've been selling restaurant secrets to competitors for years. Camera flashes exploded around her as Archer pushed through the crowd. This is absurd. Ms. Nightingale has my complete confidence. Perhaps your confidence is misplaced, Blackwood. The voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Maxwell Reed stood in the entrance, impeccably dressed and wearing a practiced expression of concern. Ashamed to see such talent corrupted, he continued, approaching slowly. Seems my former fiancée has betrayed you just as thoroughly as she betrayed me. Stella backed away, looking desperately at Archer, whose face had become an expressionless mask. Did he believe these lies? Had he orchestrated this himself? Security footage from your office shows Ms. Nightingale accessing confidential files last night, Veronica announced, her voice carrying in the suddenly silent room. Files regarding the lighthouse property. Betrayal sliced through Stella, as she realized the trap. Maxwell hadn't found her by chance. Someone had delivered her to him. As security guards approached, she made a split-second decision. Grabbing a knife from the preparation table, she backed toward the kitchen's rear exit. "Stella, don't," Archer called, starting toward her. "Stay back," she warned, tears blurring her vision. "I trusted you." Then she was running through the kitchen, out the delivery entrance, and into the storm that had begun to rage over Harborview, a perfect mirror of the tempest inside her heart. The rain lashed Harborview with unnatural fury, transforming the picturesque streets into treacherous rivers. Meteorologists would later call it the worst storm to hit the Massachusetts coast in 30 years. Stella ran blindly, her chef's coat soaked through within minutes. The knife she'd grabbed lay abandoned in a storm drain 2 blocks back. A moment of clarity amid her panic. Threatening people wasn't who she was, regardless of her fear. Lightning illuminated the harbor as she reached the marina, deserted now as boat owners had secured their vessels against the approaching tempest. Only one destination made sense: the lighthouse. Whatever secrets it held, they were her father's final message to her, perhaps her only leverage against the forces closing in. Behind her, the doors of the Sapphire burst open. Maxwell Reed emerged, flanked by 2 security men in dark raincoats. "Find her," he ordered, his voice nearly lost in the wind. "She can't have gone far." Inside the restaurant, chaos still reigned. Food critics and journalists huddled in confused groups while police officers collected statements about the theft allegations. Archer stood in the center of it all, his face a controlled mask as he spoke with the chief of police. "Mr. Blackwood," Veronica approached, tablet in hand. "Should I release the security footage to the authorities?" "What security footage?" His voice was dangerously soft. "From your home office, showing Ms. Nightingale accessing your private servers." Archer turned to her fully, his eyes cold. "Interesting, since my home security system records no such footage." Veronica's composure faltered. "I don't understand." "Don't you?" He moved closer, lowering his voice. "The only person who accessed my servers last night was you, Veronica, from your private terminal." The color drained from her face. "Archer, I would never. 10 years." His words cut like ice. 10 years of loyalty, and you sold her out to Reed. His expression hardened. "What did he offer you?" "You don't understand," she whispered. "She's changing you, distracting you from what matters." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "This isn't about Reed at all, is it?" Before she could respond, Jackson approached urgently. "Sir, Harbor Patrol spotted someone heading toward the Lighthouse Peninsula. In this weather, it's a suicide mission." Archer was already moving. "Lock down the restaurant. No one leaves until I return. And keep Reed here, by force if necessary." "Archer, wait." Veronica called after him. "Reed knows about the lighthouse. He has men going there now." But Archer was already gone, pushing through the storm toward the marina where his emergency boat was docked. The normally short trip to the Lighthouse Peninsula took Stella nearly an hour in the punishing conditions. Twice she nearly turned back as waves crashed over the narrow causeway connecting it to the mainland. By the time she reached the lighthouse, her limbs were numb with cold and exhaustion. The security panel beside the door was dark. The storm had knocked out power. Desperate, she searched around the entrance until her fingers found a loose stone near the foundation. Behind it, a tarnished key gleamed dully in the lightning flashes. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, her frozen fingers fumbling with the manual lock. Inside, the lighthouse was pitch black and freezing. Stella used her phone's flashlight to navigate the cluttered ground floor, searching for anything that might have belonged to her father. Nothing seemed out of place since her visit with Archer. "Think, Stella," she muttered, climbing the spiral staircase toward the lantern room. Her father had always loved puzzles and riddles, teaching her to look beyond the obvious. "The lighthouse holds more than memories," he'd said. The lantern room offered a grim panorama of the storm-ravaged coast. Lightning illuminated massive waves crashing against the rocks below, while rain pelted the glass like bullets. In the distance, the lights of Harborview flickered as power failed across sections of the town. Stella swept her light around the circular room, looking for anything unusual. The automated beacon had stopped working, leaving the room darker than it should have been. She examined the modern equipment that had replaced the original lighthouse mechanisms, finding nothing noteworthy. Then her light caught something. a small inconsistency in the wooden paneling near the floor. Kneeling, she pressed against different sections until a panel gave way, revealing a narrow compartment built into the wall. Inside was a waterproof case bearing her father's initials, Tien. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out and opened it. Inside were files, a flash drive, and a sealed letter addressed to her in her father's handwriting. Tears blurred her vision as she broke the seal. "Stella," it began, "if you're reading this, I failed to expose the truth and likely paid with my life. The evidence in this case connects Maxwell Reed to illegal arms dealing, money laundering, and multiple murders, including the Blackwood yacht explosion. Reed isn't working alone. He has partners within federal agencies and private industry. Trust no one except Archer Blackwood. He's been hunting the same predators, though he doesn't know how deep the conspiracy goes. Find him. Together you might succeed where I failed. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. All my love, Dad." The sound of the door crashing open below startled her. Footsteps pounded on the stairs, too heavy and purposeful to be Archer. Stella quickly returned the letter to the case and looked desperately for an escape route. The only option was the narrow maintenance door leading to the exterior gallery that circled the lantern room. With no time to think, she clutched the case to her chest and slipped outside into the raging storm. The wind nearly tore her from the platform as she pressed against the lighthouse wall, inching away from the door. Rain and sea spray made the narrow walkway treacherously slick. Below, waves crashed against the rocks with enough force to shake the entire structure. The maintenance door burst open. Maxwell Reed stepped out, a triumphant smile spreading across his face as he spotted her. "Stella, my dear," he called over the wind. "This dramatic chase has become tiresome. Give me the case." "Stay back," she warned, continuing to edge away. "There's nowhere to go." Maxwell gestured at the drop behind her. "You've always had a flair for the dramatic, but this is excessive even for you." "I know what you did," she shouted. "To my father. To the Blackwoods." His smile didn't waver. "And now you'll join them. A tragic accident during a terrible storm. So easy to believe." He lunged forward just as a massive wave struck the lighthouse, causing the entire structure to shudder. Stella lost her footing on the slippery gallery, the case clutched desperately to her chest as she fell backward. Instead of the fatal drop she expected, strong arms caught her from below. Archer Blackwood had scaled the exterior maintenance ladder and reached her just in time. "I've got you," he said, pulling her toward the ladder. Maxwell's enraged shout was lost in a deafening crack of thunder. The rotting gallery rail he was gripping gave way, sending him staggering backward. For a terrible moment, he teetered on the edge. Then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness and churning sea below. Archer guided Stella down the treacherous ladder to the relative safety of the rocks below. They huddled in the shelter of the lighthouse foundation, the precious case protected between them. "How did you find me?" Stella gasped, shivering violently. "I knew you'd come here." He pulled her closer, sharing what little warmth he could. "I'm sorry about Veronica. She betrayed us both. Maxwell is Reed's problem now. The police are looking for him for questioning about industrial espionage and evidence tampering. There's more." Stella held up the case. "My father left this. Evidence linking Reed to your parents' deaths. Arms dealing, everything." Archer stared at the case, his expression unreadable in the darkness. All this time, a massive wave crashed against their shelter, sending spray over them. The lighthouse groaned ominously above. "This structure won't last the night," Archer shouted over the storm. "We need to reach higher ground." As they staggered toward the path leading up from the shore, Stella glanced back at the lighthouse, her father's final gift still standing against the tempest, revealing its secrets just when she needed them most. What neither of them saw was the dark figure emerging from the sea behind them, dragging himself onto the rocks with grim determination. Maxwell Reed had survived the fall, and his cold eyes fixed on their retreating forms with murderous intent. The storm had reached its peak, but the true tempest was only beginning. The path up from the lighthouse had transformed into a muddy torrent. Archer gripped Stella's hand tightly as they fought their way toward higher ground, the precious case secured inside his weatherproof jacket. Each step was a battle against wind and water as the storm reached its destructive peak. "There's a maintenance shed near the top," Archer shouted over the howling gale. "We can shelter there until rescue arrives. Can anyone reach us in this?" Stella cried, nearly losing her footing on the slippery rocks. Jackson will try. I activated an emergency beacon before coming after you. They crested the hill as lightning split the sky, illuminating a small stone structure 50 yards ahead. Behind them, an ominous creaking sound rose above the storm's fury. They turned in time to see the lighthouse, which had stood for over a century, begin to topple. The upper portion collapsed first, sliding into the churning sea as the weaker sections gave way. "My father's lighthouse," Stella whispered, watching the final connection to her past disappear. "The evidence is what matters now," Archer said, pulling her toward the shed. "It's his real legacy." Inside the shed, Archer secured the door against the wind and activated an emergency lantern. The small space was cramped but dry, filled with maintenance equipment and emergency supplies. "Your team prepared for everything," Stella noted, wrapping herself in a thermal blanket from a wall-mounted kit. "I've owned this property long enough to respect the ocean's power." Archer retrieved a battery-powered heater and switched it on. "We should be safe here until morning." As warmth slowly returned to her limbs, Stella placed the waterproof case on a workbench. "We need to see what my father found." Together they examined the contents, financial records, photographs, and a detailed timeline connecting Maxwell Reed to international arms dealers, money launderers, and the orchestrated deaths of multiple people who threatened his operations, including the Blackwoods and Thomas Nightingale. "This is it," Archer said, his voice tight with emotion as he reviewed the documents. "The proof I've been searching for." Reed created a specific shell company just to purchase explosives through Dmitry Volkov. And here, Stella pointed to another document, records showing payoffs to the investigators who ruled your parents' deaths and accident. The flash drive contained video footage, surveillance recordings of Maxwell meeting with various criminal associates, including footage from the day before Thomas Nightingale disappeared. The final file was a video message from her father, recorded in the very lighthouse that had just collapsed into the sea. "Stella." Thomas Nightingale's familiar face appeared, looking exhausted but determined. "If you're watching this, I wasn't able to deliver this evidence to the authorities myself. Maxwell Reed is merely the public face of a larger criminal enterprise that's infiltrated legitimate businesses, banks, and even government agencies." He detailed how he discovered the connection between Reed and the Blackwood yacht explosion while investigating financial irregularities for a client. Reed eliminated the Blackwoods to acquire their shipping routes for arms trafficking. Their son, Archer, has been investigating independently, though he doesn't realize how extensive the network truly is. Thomas looked directly into the camera, his eyes reflecting Stella's own determination. "Reed plans to marry you to protect himself. With you as his wife, you couldn't legally testify against him. I'm sorry I won't be there to walk you down the aisle to a man worthy of you, but know that I've always been proud of your strength and intelligence. Love, Dad." Tears streamed down Stella's face as the video ended. Archer gently took her hand in his. "Your father was incredibly brave," he said softly. "I never knew." Her voice broke. "I thought he'd simply abandoned us after my mother died. He was protecting you the only way he could." Archer's expression hardened. "And now we'll finish what he started." The shed door burst open with sudden violence. Maxwell Reed stood in the threshold, a pistol in his hand, water streaming from his sodden clothes. His normally immaculate appearance was gone, replaced by a feral desperation. "How touching," he snarled. "A family reunion of sorts." Archer moved protectively in front of Stella. "It's over, Reed. The evidence is about to be destroyed, along with both of you." Maxwell gestured with the gun. "A tragic accident during the worst storm in decades. Such a compelling narrative." "Others know," Archer said calmly. "My security team has copies of everything." A cruel smile twisted Maxwell's face. "Your head of security works for me. Has for years. How do you think I always stayed one step ahead of your investigations?" He laughed at Archer's shocked expression. "Jackson Reed. My cousin. Family loyalty trumps employment contracts, I'm afraid." Horror dawned on Stella. "That's how you found me at the restaurant. How you knew about the lighthouse." "Precisely. Though your friend Veronica proved unexpectedly useful as well." Maxwell stepped further into the shed, closing the door behind him. "Now, I'll take that case." "No," Stella said, finding her courage. "My father died for this evidence. I won't let you destroy it. Your father was an insignificant obstacle, just like Archer's parents." Maxwell's composure slipped, revealing the ruthless predator beneath. Do you have any idea what I've built? The power I wield? I control shipping routes across 3 continents, have judges and senators in my pocket, and eliminate problems with a single phone call. You're just another criminal, Archer said. Wearing an expensive suit doesn't change that. Maxwell's face contorted with rage. You pretentious fool. Your parents were the same. Too self-righteous to see the opportunity one offered them. A partnership that would have made them billions. So you murdered them when they refused. Archer's voice was deadly quiet. They made their choice. Maxwell raised the gun. As you've made yours. The shot never came. Instead, the shed door crashed open again, this time revealing Veronica Sinclair, wielding a flare gun. Drop it, Reed, she commanded, her usually perfect appearance disheveled but her aim steady. Maxwell laughed. Miss Sinclair, coming to save your beloved boss. How predictable. Step away from them, she insisted. Or what? You'll shoot me with a flare? In this confined space, we'd all burn. Better than letting you walk away again. Her voice hardened. I made a terrible mistake helping you, but I won't compound it by allowing you to kill them. Maxwell's expression turned calculating. I underestimated your attachment to Blackwood. Perhaps we can reach an arrangement. In that moment of distraction, Archer lunged forward, tackling Maxwell to the ground. The gun discharged, the bullet splintering wood inches from Stella's head. The 2 men grappled violently, crashing against the workbench and sending tools scattering across the floor. Veronica rushed to help, but Maxwell struck her with a vicious backhand, sending her sprawling. The flare gun skittered across the floor toward Stella, who grabbed it instinctively. Maxwell gained the upper hand, pressing his forearm against Archer's throat. I've waited years to watch the last Blackwood die, he growled. Stella aimed the flare gun. Let him go. Maxwell glanced up, contempt in his eyes. You don't have the courage, my dear. You couldn't even say I do. You're right, she said calmly. I couldn't say those words to a monster. She pulled the trigger. The flare shot across the small space, missing Maxwell but hitting the wall behind him. Sparks scattered across the shed as the flare ricocheted, igniting emergency fuel canisters stored nearby. Fire erupted instantly, consuming one wall of the shed. In the chaos, Archer broke free, delivering a devastating punch that sent Maxwell crashing to the floor. Grabbing both Stella and the case, he pulled her toward the door. Veronica, he called through the thickening smoke. She staggered to her feet, blood trickling from her temple. Go? I'll keep him here. No, come with us. This is my redemption, Archer. She blocked Maxwell's attempt to follow them. Get that evidence to the authorities. Finish this. As they stumbled into the storm, flames engulfed the shed behind them. The last glimpse Stella had was of Veronica standing resolutely between Maxwell and the door, her expression peaceful despite the inferno surrounding her. They were halfway down the hill when the shed exploded, ammunition and fuel canisters detonating in a fireball that lit up the stormy night. The blast knocked them to the ground, Archer's body shielding Stella from the worst of the shockwave. As they lay there, the rain suddenly lessened. Looking up, Stella realized the eye of the storm had reached them, a surreal moment of relative calm in the midst of chaos. The clouds above had parted just enough to reveal stars shining in the dark sky. It's over, Archer said, helping her to her feet. The case remained clutched in his hand, Thomas Nightingale's evidence intact. He's gone. In the strange quiet of the storm's eye, Stella looked back at the burning remains of the shed, then down to where the lighthouse had stood for generations. So much loss, so much destruction, yet something new had emerged from the devastation. They held each other as emergency lights appeared on the mainland, rescue teams finally able to approach during the storm's momentary lull. The evidence was safe. The truth would finally come to light. And in that moment of clarity, Stella understood what her father had meant. The lighthouse hadn't just held physical evidence. It had guided her to exactly where she needed to be, to the person who could help her finish what Thomas Nightingale had begun. We made it, she whispered against Archer's chest, his heartbeat strong beneath her cheek. Together, he agreed, his arms tightening around her as the storm's far wall approached, bringing one final challenge before the dawn. 6 months later, the newly renovated Sapphire gleamed in the summer sunset. The restaurant had been expanded, its oceanfront deck now wrapping around the entire building to offer panoramic views of Harborview Bay. White lights twinkled in the trees surrounding the outdoor seating area where a private celebration was underway. Stella moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from food critics and local dignitaries. Her new summer menu had just earned the restaurant its first Michelin star, an achievement that had put Harborview firmly on the culinary map. Chef Nightingale, a journalist, called. "Any comment on Maxwell Reed's sentencing yesterday?" "Justice was served," she answered simply. "Now, please enjoy the celebration. This is about the future, not the past." The investigation triggered by Thomas Nightingale's evidence had revealed a criminal network extending into federal agencies, international banking, and weapons trafficking. Reed's empire had collapsed spectacularly, with dozens of co-conspirators now facing charges. Jackson Reed, Archer's former head of security, had been arrested while attempting to flee the country. Veronica's body had never been recovered from the shed explosion, though dental remains confirmed her presence. Despite her betrayal, Archer had established a scholarship in her name at the local community college, acknowledging her final act of courage. Stella found a quiet moment on the deck's edge, gazing toward the lighthouse peninsula. Construction had begun on a new lighthouse, not as a functional navigation aid, but as a memorial to those who had lost their lives seeking truth, including her father and Archer's parents. "Penny for your thoughts?" Archer appeared beside her, two champagne flutes in hand. "Just thinking about how much has changed." She accepted the glass, their fingers brushing. "A year ago I was preparing to marry a monster. And now," his eyes held a warmth few people ever witnessed, "now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Their relationship had developed slowly after that fateful night. Both carried wounds that needed time to heal, trust that needed rebuilding. Archer had systematically dismantled and restructured his business operations, stepping back from the obsessive drive that had defined him for so long. Stella had opened a small culinary school adjacent to the restaurant, training local youth in the kitchen skills that had saved her own life. "I have something for you," Archer said, reaching into his pocket. He produced not a ring box, as she half expected, but a small brass key. "What's this?" The lighthouse construction team found something embedded in the old foundation. "A safe box with your name on it." Stella's hand trembled as she took the key. "My father," Archer nodded. "Apparently he left more than just evidence. The box is waiting in my office whenever you're ready." Inside the climate-controlled office, a weathered metal box sat on Archer's desk. The key fit perfectly, the lock turning with surprising ease. Inside lay a sealed envelope and a small velvet pouch. The letter was brief, written in her father's familiar hand. "Stella, these belong to your mother. She wanted you to have them on your wedding day, but only when you found someone worthy of your heart. I hope that day comes, and when it does, know we are both there in spirit. All my love, Dad." The velvet pouch contained her mother's wedding jewelry, sapphire earrings that matched her eyes, and a delicate diamond pendant. "He knew," she whispered, tears flowing freely. "Somehow he knew I'd end up here." "Your father was an exceptional investigator," Archer said gently, "and he knew his daughter deserved exceptional love." Through her tears, Stella noticed Archer's unusually nervous expression. Before she could question it, he took her hand. "I had planned an elaborate proposal for tonight," he admitted. "Champagne, sunset, string quartet. But seeing your father's message, nothing I arranged could be more perfect than this moment." He knelt before her, producing a ring with a sapphire center stone surrounded by diamonds. "Stella Nightingale, you taught me that vengeance is hollow without love to fill the space it leaves behind. Will you marry me? Not because fate brought us together, but because we chose each other despite everything trying to tear us apart." Stella looked from the ring to the man holding it, the broken billionaire who had healed alongside her, whose strength and vulnerability had become her anchor. "Yes," she whispered, "but this time, I promise not to run from the altar." His laugh was tender as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "And I promise to be worthy of your trust every day." As they returned to the celebration, Marcus clinked his glass for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to Chef Nightingale and Mr. Blackwood." The crowd cheered as Archer's arm slipped around Stella's waist, their shared journey evident in the way they moved together. Two broken people who had found wholeness in each other. Later that night, they stood at the construction site of the new lighthouse, where a simple plaque had been installed. "For Thomas Nightingale, Richard and Eleanor Blackwood, and Veronica Sinclair." who guided others to safer shores at great personal cost. As the stars emerged above Harborview Bay, Stella and Archer remained there in silence, two survivors who had weathered their storm and emerged stronger, not despite their scars, but because of them. The lighthouse would stand again, a beacon of the truth they had fought to uncover and the love that unexpected journey had revealed.